Brambro back with some Grand Tactician Civil War CSA campaign in the 1.06 beta. Okay, so where we left off the last episode, we fought a battle in southern Ohio, which opens up the approaches to Marietta, both for army movement and for logistics. And so preparing soon to move into northwestern Virginia and chase George McClellan out of Grafton. Before getting into that, let me just make a few comments. The last battle we fought, cavalry still had the mixed cav weapons because we were just a few days away from getting our repeating carbines for all our cav. And in fact, those showed up during the battle while the battle was being fought. So all the cavalry in all of the armies now have repeating carbines of some sort. And it's about equally divided among Jocelyn's, Merrill's, and Maynard's, which are all pretty similar. They all have the same range. They all have a pretty good rate of fire, between 9 and 12 rounds per minute. If there's any real difference among them, it's probably that the Maynard is the most accurate of the three. Anyway, our cavalry is now well armed. And actually, as I'm speaking, I'm wondering if we have rifled artillery yet. Not quite. We still have 256 pound 14-pounder Jameses coming in, still 2 days away. So actually, I guess I'll be probably breaking for that, and I'll go farm those out off camera. I want to respond to a comment that was made in yesterday's videos. And that comment was, hey, can you please go over transport capacity and how does that work now? Because the old transportation subsidy slider is gone and I don't know how to do that. Okay. So that... I did happen to address that recently, but I certainly don't expect that everyone's watched every second of every video. So yeah, we'll go over that again. Right. So sea, river, and rail transport up here on the upper right of this bar, and the way that these capacities are increased. You know, we've got 89 river capacity right now. We've got 115 rail capacity. And how are those increased if we don't have transportation subsidies? So that is done by a couple of ways. Number one, not number one in importance, just the first of these is that's what these new market buildings do. If we hover over this market description, it says, markets improve economy locally by increasing transport capacity, which in turn improves flow of goods in the area. And that is why I have, let me go to the correct... well, why am I not getting my... there we go. I guess it was just lagging a little bit. That is, if I go to the market influences heat map, and you can see every one of these little red spots all throughout the Confederacy are markets. And I've spread them out like this specifically to improve transport capacity. This clump of red all along here were markets that I built trying to improve the seaports in the area. This kind of string of markets through, and also on the Atlantic coast as well, And this kind of string of markets up through here in the center were to try to improve. They basically follow rail infrastructure through this, excuse me, through the center of the CSA. All these markets are up in here were to do the same thing, trying to get more transport capacity and supply flow into Kentucky. And then I put several along the Mississippi River for river ports to improve river transport capacity. So markets is one way. And then there's a couple of projects that are relevant as well. If we go into the projects, do by subsidy type, there is an economic subsidy project called market reform, which further increases the efficiency of the nation's markets. And since that's what markets do, is improve transport capacity, this project plays right into that same effect. And then there is also infrastructure reform. Each level of this project further increases the transport capacity of all the nation's IIPs. So those two projects and the market building, it appears to me, are basically the game mechanics which have replaced the old transportation subsidy in 1.05 and prior. So, is that clear? Was that clear as mud? To that poster, thanks for the comment, and I hope that kind of answered your question. I'll also, this isn't a 1.06 thing. These numbers up here normally read 0. Okay? The number on the right, like right here, this is my C transport. The number on the right, that's my transport capacity, 110. And then I've got 89 river and 115 rail. The 0 on the left, the number on the left is what are you using right this moment, actually using for Army transportation. So if I were to get on the train, if Ewell's Corps were to get on the train at Louisville and use it to get to Covington, then while he's on the train moving, then we will see a number here on the left of the rail transport. These are normally 0. Okay. Covered the cav weapons, covered the transportation. In addition to this little thing that we're about to do in Western Virginia, we are also besieging Fort Monroe. And the whole idea of taking out Fort Monroe is to free up naval movement right here in Hampton Roads, which will then enable us to attack and drive away this blockading fleet. So in anticipation of that, I've got 3 fleets here at Gosport. So they're formed and are building readiness right now, and hopefully they will be ready at green readiness by when Fort Monroe goes away, and they can come out here and hit the Atlantic Blockading Squadron. And what's in those fleets? I've got 2 little steamer squadrons. I called them raiding squadrons, 1 and 2. And they're the typical, they're like a mix of 4th-rate steamers and double-enders to go into raiding mode and wear down this fleet. They will lose. We've talked about this, and we've used this tactic before. But their purpose is to wear down the blockading fleet. And then I've got the Hampton Roads Squadron. Flagship is the CSS Virginia, our one and only ironclad, accompanied by 7 seagoing frigates. Sail frigates, not steam or side wheel or whatever. And then the idea is that then they will come out and attack this weakened blockading squadron, if it's still there. We kind of saw down in New Orleans earlier, the steamers may be enough to drive them off. Not from really wrecking them, but just from driving their readiness down. Okay, so that's what's going on here in Virginia, and so one can kind of think of it as like a combined Army Navy joint operation. So that's kind of cool. All right. Hardee, following the Battle of whatever this was over here, Hillsborough, he was unengaged. He was on the field, but basically unengaged in that battle, and he has moved on. He's coming to Marietta, and I have already transferred him. He is now under the command of Beauregard. He's part of the Army of Western Virginia. Once he arrives, then Beauregard will advance along this rail line, and McClellan should be right here at Grafton. Let's just see. Union invasions. Army of Occupation strength estimated to be 30,000 men at Grafton. We'll do what we did before. Waiting for Hardee to show up. Let's, Garnett is in scouting mode. Let's just go ahead and move him up the line just to catch sight of McClellan's army and make sure that's exactly where he is. Actually, if we just click this Union invasion, it'll center the camera on. Yeah, he's still right in here. Right, let's get time moving. Actually, no, there was one thing I forgot to do. I have been saving up industrial subsidies for a factory, and I'm finally able to build one. So I'm going to do that. If you look down in the lower right there, when you click this build button, you get that environment tooltip that tells you the price, the projected price of their sold goods and pre-goods, the raw materials. So kind of looking for a spot that is A, near infrastructure, B, in a high workforce area, and C, that sold good percentage is higher than the pre-good percentage. Let me click that. Let me go to the workforce map. There we go. Okay. And once again, kind of this southern, western, well, even eastern for that matter, Tennessee is kind of a nice spot for all that. Lots of workforce. And they're usually fairly close. You know, unless something's just really out of whack, not really going to have situations where you've got like a 10% or better spread between the pre and that's actually pretty good there. 96, 89, 77% workforce. Yeah, it's kind of up in the mountains and it's not that close to a railroad. Yeah. That may in fact be precisely why there's a pretty decent spread. $96.90. Two railroads close by, right in the thick of the workforce concentration. I think it's a pretty good spot. I'm going to put a factory about in here. Boom. Jeez, even with the full oh, okay. We spent $4.5 million in subsidies. Yeah, that's not bad. What else can we build? We could do a farm, a mill, or a... Well, I know I'm not doing a darn salt works. That's the one thing we've got literally more than we know what to do with. So mills produce flour. Do we need flour? We are producing 4,000 and demand 200. No, that looks okay. And it's low priced. You know, there's no little... These little coins represent value. So basically, if they're high, you know, like food is high value, high priced. And we are producing about 170,000, 270,000 demanded. Okay, so demand outstrips supply. That's why we've got 5 little coin icons here. It's a high value, high price item. What makes food? Factories. That's why I just built that factory. Primarily for food. It makes other stuff too, but food's the main reason I did it. Okay, even though it's high value, we are producing more than is demanded for forage. That's a farm thing. Way more production than demand on crops. That's a farm thing. Livestock. Looks like we're fine there. Let's see. Forage, crops, livestock. Farms make something else and I don't remember what it is. I think it's wool. Yeah, and we're way high on that as well. Okay. So I think we're fine on farms. At least in terms of what we're producing versus what is demanded. And we seem to be fine on flour. It's making me wonder what to use my agricultural subsidies for. How are we doing on rice? So rice, we are not producing nearly up to demand, and it is a high value item. Now, food doesn't need rice. It is one of the 4 ways that food can be made. Livestock and crops, or flour rather, being the other 2 of the other ways. The 4th way is fish. I'm not exactly sure where that comes from. I guess that must come from ports. I mean, we're producing 254,000 fish. So we've got plenty. I guess that must come from ports. I guess if I actually looked at a port, it would tell us. I am going way down a tangent here. All right. I built my factory. Let's get back to the business at hand. And Hardy's already got orders. He's coming up. It's a good time rolling. Let's go. Okay, let me just pause right there. And this just illustrates what I was talking about. See? Garnet's core is now on the railroad, moving up to this position. And we can see now this number is not 0. Okay, we're using 111 of 115 rail capacity right now moving this core, which is about right. Garnet's core is about 22,000 men. And so our rail capacity is just about what's needed to move a core of men as efficiently as possible. You can, the player can, exceed 115 here, right? If Garnet was 30,000 men, he would still be moving on the railroad. But he would be moving slower, and there is a cost to this. I don't know exactly how it is manifested. But this is being paid for, and I think it consumes locomotives. I'm not sure about that. But if you exceed the rail capacity, you move. However, it costs more. I'm just not sure exactly what that cost is. Increased consumption of locomotives, or if there's a money bill, or I don't know. I should know. I just don't. Sue me. Okay. So Garnet's in scouting mode. But we saw this before in an earlier episode. You have to get surprisingly close to get vision on McClellan up here at Grafton. I don't know if that's because of the terrain, because it's in the Appalachians and it's all hilly and woodsy. Your guess is as good as mine on why we have to get so close to see them. I mean, we're seeing armies much further away in places like India. I need to do something about Hill's Corps. Oh, his supply is fine. No, his supply is not fine. His problem isn't food. His problem is ammo. Hold on a minute now. I need to turn on the... Yeah, there's plenty of food in this captured supply. Over 1,000 food. However, there's no arty ammo, and there's some small arms. Yeah, he's fine for small arms, but he's at 24% on artillery ammo. How about Covington Depot? Well, there's some there. But either way, that's not his attrition. I'm not really sure why he's taking the... I mean, I understand... That's just because of the recent battle, he thought, I think. But at any rate, I think we need to roll him back to Covington just to stock up on artillery ammo. And this is how you get the guys to actually move on the rail. You click where you want them to go, and then this little menu, you got to click on that and make sure that rail, sea, and river movement, depending on which one you're trying to go. I just click them all three because they'll stay clicked up until they fight a battle. So you have to have this little button enabled for them to use rail movement. That's not a 1.06 thing. It's always been there. I know that's basic stuff. Everyone knows that. It was just, we were talking about it. That's why I mentioned it. And let me bring Sidney Johnston's army back down. Army HQ. So that he... kind of thinking maybe I'll chop Ewell's corps to Johnston. Maybe not. Johnston's got a new perk. He's got embedded reporters, pontoon trains. I'm using ambulance corps down at the corps level, so I don't want to overlap that. I'm using flying column down at the corps level. And actually, I forgot the third thing I was doing down at corps level. think Hardy actually has all three. Land torpedoes. Yeah, okay. So, I've lost Johnston. Where'd he go? There he is. Up until recently, I would go with engineer and mechanics just because for building supply depots, but I'm trying not to do. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do this. For building supply depots, armies do it a fair amount, even in the new economy. Fine. Okay, there is McClellan. Ooh. Army of the Potomac is still here. $24,000 men. Army, well, and they're moving. What's going on here? You know what? I don't want to get caught in a battle here. Until. Okay, there's 50,000 men there. I need a. What is Army of the Cumberland doing? I'm just getting these guys back in reinforcement range. I think I'm going to have to bring a third corps up here. Except they're leaving Grafton. I need to get Garnet back out of scouting mode so that he can reinforce quicker. Okay, I think we need to go up. I think I need to go attack the Army of the Cumberland now before these guys get within clearly they're moving west. Why they're doing that, I'm not really sure. But if I let them get across the river over here, then we're looking at 70,000 men combined among these three armies. So I think maybe I better go up here and defeat the Army of the Cumberland first before these guys can reinforce. Meanwhile, this is temporary. This is a temporary job down here at Fort Monroe. Third Corps of the A&V is not going to stay in this area once Fort Monroe is gone. He will have done his job. At that point, I am going to move him up into the Shenandoah. And I think I will probably use that force. Because now the way is open through here. I'll probably use that force to come over here and take not only Grafton, but maybe Cumberland as well. And let's keep these two corps kind of close to each other and make sure we don't lose Marietta. There is also another force here of some type because there is a supply depot building. Interesting. I've talked about it a number of times, but yeah, I mean the The AI was pretty slow to get going in this campaign, and in fact, as people who have watched the series are well aware, could easily have won this campaign in 1861. I deliberately did not take Washington, D.C. at a point where taking Washington, D.C. would have put them pretty close to defeat, and it would have been pretty simple to win this campaign before winter. Having given them that amount of breathing room, though, campaign AI is doing some kind of interesting things. There, and I've mentioned multiple times, each individual battle hasn't been a real big issue, but he's got so many armies that it's a little bit of, it's kind of, we've been playing whack-a-mole all up and down the Ohio Valley, and at one point, Hardy's score got worn down pretty good as a result. He was winning, but the cumulative casualties were making him look a little threadbare. Garnet's score has a perk. Ambulance score, please. Thank you. That's a no-brainer. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty short episode. If I fight the battle within the same episode, it's going to be pretty long. So I'm going to break that up and actually just post 2 separate videos, I think. Let's just see how close we are to Fort Monroe's siege. Let's see how we're doing down here. We're up to orange readiness on our Navy down in Gosport. And this is called Gosport. This seems like a good time for one of my irrelevant little historical ram tangents. So the way that this area is configured, the port, this is a rough representation. So the James comes down this way, over here, down from Richmond. And then this stretch of water here, this is the Elizabeth River that runs north-south, right in this area. Norfolk is actually tucked away down here on the eastern side of the Elizabeth. Right across from Norfolk, where we see this little port, that is a town called Portsmouth. And then Gosport is basically, I guess maybe at this time the towns were so small, maybe it was considered a separate town. But today, basically, it's a neighborhood of Portsmouth. And the actual Navy Yard at the time was at Gosport. Today it is called Norfolk Naval Shipyard because this is all kind of a metropolitan area now. But at the time it was distinctly separate at the little town or neighborhood of Gosport across the river from Norfolk. And even today at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, there's a little section of the shipyard that is still called Gosport. And that little area of the shipyard, it's part of the base, but it is not really part of the heavy industrial area. At the naval shipyards, there's like a base within a base. You've got the main base, which is the naval property, and a lot of its administration buildings and the exchange and the barbershop and all that kind of stuff. And then inside of that is a smaller area called the CIA, the Controlled Industrial Area. And that's where all the real work is done. That's where all the machine shops are, the dry docks, the cranes. Okay, that's in the CIA. So at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, there is a little section that is inside the base, but outside the CIA, right on the waterfront. And that's Gosport, and that is the original site And there's a bunch of really old 19th century red brick buildings and everything. They're not museums or anything. They're regular office space. They're still used. But what's cool about this, and why I'm talking about it, is that little section. It's waterfront, and ships are in the recent past. I don't know what they're doing today, but in the modern Navy, sometimes ships have still been based there, home ported. Officially, they're part of the Norfolk establishment, but their actual pier space, they still can use Gosport to put some like frigates and destroyers there. And there's a wharf. There's a cut into the waterfront where you can park a couple of frigates. And that cut, that quay wall, is one of the original dry docks. It's no longer a dry dock. It's just a water-filled wharf space now. But it was once a dry dock. And there was a time in the past when my own ship, that was our home port. And we berthed in there all the time. And that little spot where we berthed was actually the original dry dock where the Merrimack was converted into the CSS Virginia. So that was a neat little historical thing we had right there. No museums. There might be a plaque that everybody walks by and no one looks at. But other than that, it was just a neat little piece of history. So that's what this Gosport Navy Yard is. And what it's like today. How's our siege doing? Yeah, it's getting a little closer. I don't think it'll be too much longer. Our morale seems to be doing fine among these sieging. Yeah, stable. Of course, the two defending brigades are also stable. Note, though, condition down to 0 and no fort firepower left. Still plenty of men. Morale's not bad. But all the guns have been knocked out. So this isn't going to take much longer. Some might ask, well, why don't you just assault it? And the answer is I could, and I probably would win, but there are over 5,000 men in here. There might be, I don't see the need to take extra casualties. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here, and we'll come back with the next episode to fight. I originally intended to come over here and fight a battle at Grafton. It's kind of looking like we're about to fight another battle in Ohio instead. Maybe the Battle of Zanesville or whatever this. Yeah, maybe it'll just be the Battle of Marietta. We'll see. All right, if you like what we're doing with the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, maybe even a subscribe. And oh, by the way, that separate video for this battle upcoming, I'll post it pretty soon afterward. Don't have to wait a day for the battle. At any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.